welcome everybody to the next episode of Chiefs Focus First and 10 Live, brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. You are here on the Fantasy Sports Corporation. How you guys doing? We're here with Caleb and JP. And Quentin. Sorry, it's been a rough day. What's going on, you guys?
Yeah,
it's been a rough day.
Throw me under the bus. I'm gonna do it. That's fine.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't need to be here.
Your scream was blank to me. I'm sorry.
Oh Lord, here we go again.
Yeah. We got the beard of knowledge, we got the professor, and we got the old dude that can't remember who's on the show.
Yeah.
So we're all good to go.
We've only been doing it for I don't know how many months.
I don't know. I've been on this for 7 years. I still don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, how you guys doing?
Pretty good.
What'd you think of today?
What even is that question? What do you mean? What do you think of today in means of like the football world?
What kind of show are we doing here? I'm not talking about...
all right, let's talk about Mecole Hardman because that's...
We could talk about the tornadoes in California. If you want to do that, but that's just not...
Let's talk about Mecole Hardman. It was surprising. I didn't think that the Jets were really in line to get him. It's a tiny little deal. I feel bad for Mecole Hardman because, talk about the injury coming at just the wrong time. So it sucks for him that, he's the kind of player that he should be in the league until he's like 34. And, that $10 million contract, if I would have told you that Colin Saunders would have got a bigger contract than Mecole Hardman at the beginning of the year, you'd call me crazy and you would have fired me. But it's just, funny how some of this stuff works out. And it's unfortunate for Mecole.
Well, Caleb, what do you got?
Well, I
got something afterwards. I'm just going to spill the beans after everybody's done saying what they got to say.
I feel as if I do think the deal's a little bit smaller, especially you kind of see the upside, him be using the jet sweep game and the screen passes, all those different things. I do feel like he should probably got a multi-year deal, but this doesn't surprise me due to the injury that took place, what we saw happen this past season. Hopefully he can do what he can do with the Jets. They kind of have some good pieces in play already there. And if some of the stuff we've heard about happens and Rodgers actually joins, it'll be interesting to see what Rodgers could do with Mecole. Now, when we look at his production, it was kind of up and down, and we finally found out kind of his niche, what he was going to do. But ultimately, I don't know if he's going to get the number of targets if Rodgers was to go there, in my opinion. I just feel like that number could be dropped more. That's just my opinion personally.
Well, I will say this. This was a situation that probably wouldn't have happened. Actually, I'll go ahead and say it because it doesn't really matter at this point. There was an offer made by Mecole's camp to the Chiefs on a 3-year deal, a very team-friendly deal. And they were going to accept that until he decided to go on a podcast and say that Andy didn't utilize him correctly pretty much the entire 4 years he was here.
Well, he dropped a lot of passes, fumbled. I don't really know what to say about that one.
Yeah.
There's two sides to every story. Yeah, they could have used him better, but then also it's like, as Quentin calls, Pat camp, Hardman wouldn't go there. It just showed sometimes he didn't show maturity as a veteran in that wide receiver, in my opinion, personally. I felt like there were some times he could have done different things.
I think this leads into a broader question about the 2019 draft class. And I think, after we're done talking about Mecole, I've got some questions for you guys about that draft. But I think this just shows that, sometimes I think it'll probably be better for Mecole to go off and play under another quarterback. He'll be in an offense. I think we can all agree that Aaron Rodgers is going to become a Jet. So I think going in another high-powered offense, if they truly get with just everything that they have there and with Aaron Rodgers, even if he's not the Aaron Rodgers of old, that offense is still going to be of quality. It's still going to be, he's still a good quarterback in the league. And even though it's in a really competitive division and conference, I think that Jets offense can be competitive. And so, going there on a 1-year deal, assuming he can be healthy for the entire year, I think that maybe he sort of leads into the next, chapter of his career where he can get that, $15 million deal over 3 or 4 seasons.
I agree. I did hear this was partially an Aaron Rodgers request as well, and they were the late bloomer because from what everybody that I've spoken to said, there was only a couple of teams that were interested in prior to the Jets, and that was Cleveland and Washington. So if I was McColl and I had the opportunity, I would have taken. I mean, I would have went with the Jets. You're going with the quarterback that's the closest to the style of play that you're used to, and you're going to a competitor. Now, this leads into something that I had spoken to an agent about today and a couple of reporters. And it kind of gives you an idea of how different we are compared to every other football team in the AFC. We're not concerned with signing someone to worry about them being traded to a team that we're a competitor with. We are not the team that is going to get dealt anyone from the AFC. So I've thought this for a long time. Nobody wants us to get any better. Nobody really wants to deal with us, AFC wise. It's going to be very difficult for Veets to work out any type of a trade with an AFC team, especially a competitor, somebody that's in contention, I should say, and not give up the farm. This has been a problem for a while. It's just now it's become a worse problem because, again, we won the Super Bowl. Again, we appeared in the Super Bowl. Again, we won the AFC Championship game. And we did it with a hell of a lot lesser talent to a degree than, 50% of the rest of the NFL has as far as, skilled position players are concerned. So, Philip said, I think that's going to, whatever player we end up with, we are going to end up with a player out of the NFC. The D-Hop situation, I'm hearing stories about this D-Hop situation. I heard it earlier today. Actually, I think I called you and somebody else about this. Supposedly, from a source, the Buffalo Bills are trying to get him. One story was he was signing with Buffalo. I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was smoke and mirrors. I've asked a couple of people about this. One of the people is actually close in Buffalo, and he tends to believe it's true. But again, he's a Buffalo fan, as much as a reporter. But the other people I spoke to seem to have the same sentiment I do, and that is.
And we also saw on his Instagram story too, he had the Buffalo Soldier song with him riding in a car. So I mean, I don't know. Sometimes players do things, probably just get a reaction. Yeah. I would like for the Chiefs to get D-Hop, but more and more, I'm starting to realize, like JP said, it's going to be difficult to get those trades to work. And specifically, at the end of the day, what we're going to see is that the Chiefs are going to just have to do a lot of find all homegrown talent and find small players and things that along those nature in order to help make things better. Because what we see in the past, they have struggled in trying to make some trades. Now, keep in mind, they have made some big trades, but getting that next caliber player, it's going to be difficult. And even if you try to get it from the NFC, that may be a tough task as well.
I do think that if there's a team like, I don't know, the Colts, for example, like if there's a guy on the Colts and for some reason, there's a trade that works out with a team like Indianapolis, a non-contender in the AFC, I still think the Chiefs can trade within the AFC with guys like that. I just don't think Kansas City can really go out and deal with a Buffalo or Cincinnati. I don't think that those are the kind of players, or those are the teams that Kansas City can go out and trade with, because you are in constant competition with them. So I do think I'd push back on that idea that there's no teams that you can trade with in the conference. But I do think that you're right, that there are some of the top dogs and the AFC West teams that you're going to continue to be competitive with for years. I think teams like the Patriots are, those sort of teams that are around 500, below 500, teams that have struggled with I mean, the Texans, right? I mean, there were talks about trading Laramie Tunzel for whatever, whether you believe that it was going to happen or not, there were conversations that were had. So not all the AFC teams are just locking out us from trade conversations. So I still
That's
think that
true.
there is a chance to be able to trade within the AFC and as well as the NFC. You're just limited on how many teams.
I mean, Veach pulled off the Orlando Brown trade. I was kind of surprised when that first happened. I mean, it can get done, but I just feel like they're going to ask for the moon opposed to the stars, and that's where there could be some issues there. And I don't know how you guys feel about this too, but I kind of felt like, we got Mahomes, we got a great quarterback. I just thought these free agents would be coming in a lot more quicker and a lot more better than beforehand. And I've noticed we just haven't had that as much around. Do you feel the same way? How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think that, because that was like the Patriots thing, right? Where like free agents wanted to come.
Yeah, just always come regardless.
Yeah, I think there is some of that, right? There was a report that came out a few weeks ago, maybe a week ago, that talked about how Patrick Mahomes has been getting text messages from wide receivers across the league, trying to come in. So I think that specifically that relates more to offensive players than defensive players. But I do think also that the Carlos Dunlaps of the world, right? Older guys that are going to end on 1-year deals. If you have an option to come play here for $6 million or, go to, I don't know, not to throw the Houston under the bus again, or go to play for Houston for a year for $10 million, right? I think that towards the end of your career when money is not much of a priority, you may be more willing to come here to Kansas City. And I think there's some to that. I don't think that, if there's a $10 million difference in your salary that you're going to choose Kansas City over somewhere else. But I think the recent success can be a tiebreaker for free agents. So there's some push and pull right there between, trades may be harder to get done, but it's easier to get some free agents, especially, veteran guys that are just that aren't looking to get a 4 or 5 year deal done, that are just looking to be here for a year and hopefully to have some success.
And that's a great point too, kind of looking on both sides of it. I don't know. I just kind of always felt like I thought it would fall into our lap specifically, but maybe give it a little bit more time. It'll all work out regardless, though.
Yeah, I think you could see that's already happening, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I think like the Juju Smith-Schuster signing, I think had a part of it to be, a year ago he came here because of definitely wasn't because of the money, right? So, we didn't offer him a crazy contract to play here for a year. Playing here under Patrick Mahomes, and especially future wide receivers, right? Guys like him that are looking to get a big payday, in the future. You come here and prove yourself, you can turn yourself into the next Albert Wilson, where
that's a fair point.
The league didn't look at you very highly beforehand, but you come here, you have a good year, and maybe you can lock yourself up into not a groundbreaking contract, but one that, you can go off and live with.
Yeah, that's very respectful. That's a good point. I mean, you bring up Albert Wilson. I mean, he got that contract based off that last game of what he did. I mean, that
and also did Chris Conley. I mean, Chris
Conley.
That's another great example.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where you have to realize, and look, if you look at the comparison between Juju's contract and McColl's contract, McColl got a year, $6.5 million with incentives, compared to Juju's, which was a 3-year deal.
Yep.
So it kind of gives you an indication that maybe the Jets aren't as sold on McColl as everyone's, assumes. And I'm pretty positive the offers that he got from the 2 other teams that were interested in him weren't more than a year. I just don't believe it. When you have a player that came from the absolute best football team in the conference, in the league, and he wasn't able to perform when guys like Albert Wilson, Chris Conley, below average wide receivers that didn't have the hype and the skill level that McColl supposedly had, it's going to put some doubt in people's minds. And I think that's where they're looking at it right now, is just doubt. I would have that doubt as well, not only just from an injury standpoint, but from a performance standpoint. It is what it is.
I think his injury played a big part into his lack of contract. I think if he was healthy, let's say he ended the year as like a 650-yard receiver and, didn't have any huge games in the playoff, right? Was just sort of an average receiver for the rest of the year. I think he gets a 3-year deal worth $20 million to sign with some team around the NFL. I think the injury and, the fact that he sort of had 3 injuries, they called it an illness, they called it an injury, and then he had a hip injury in the AFC Championship game. So there was a combination of that. I think that really hurt his market, because otherwise I think that he could have been maybe the 2nd or 3rd highest paid receiver of this free agency market.
Well, actually, 2 of those injuries were one and the same. He hurt his pelvis when he was on the road back from the illness that he had. And he came back too soon. It's really what it all boils down to. And it made it worse. So I agree that his injury probably played a big part in it, but also given the fact that he was somewhat of a gadget player with the Chiefs and he didn't have the production that in any year except for his rookie season when he had pretty decent production, I think that really hurt his value. And the wide receiver market's not huge anyway right now. I mean, the numbers are very low. So it's not like it was when the Christian Kirk deal happened or, the Devontae Adams.
It's at a record low compared to last year. I mean, you left him out. This was last year and this is this year. I mean, there's a huge gap. It's just not even comparable.
I mean, you're talking, tens of millions of dollars difference in contracts compared to last year. It's, the market changes every year. There's always a different position group that goes up. This year it's offensive line that's running high numbers. It has been for a little while. Defensive line is running a little higher numbers. Actually, weirdly enough, quarterbacks are running higher numbers right now than wide receivers are. So
the backups are getting a good amount of money. How about the say? They're making pretty good money.
Look at Saunders, a rotational piece that just got paid. So, so it's just one of those things.
I would push back. I wouldn't call Mecole Hardman a gadget player. I don't think that's fair to him. I mean, he's a 600-yard yearly receiver, right? I mean, that's about what he's going to give you. And I do think that he is valuable to your team. I don't think we should call him a gadget player. I think he's a solid 3rd wide receiver. And in today's NFL, you can never have enough weapons around, especially in the AFC with how competitive it is. If you are not, we talked about this yesterday, if you are not, top tier at the quarterback position, you need to go invest everywhere around him. So you need to make sure that you have enough weapons. And any team that has Mecole Hardman as their 3rd wide receiver, they should be happy with how their team is constructed.
Hey, take it easy, man. I'm just going by what everyone else calls him. Everybody called him a gadget player. Everybody said he was the gadget guy. He was the end around guy. He was this, he was that. I actually like Mecole. I've talked to Mecole numerous times. He's a great guy. I don't have anything against him. And he may be right. Maybe he wasn't utilized correctly. Maybe he wasn't capable of being utilized the way he thinks he should be.
And I have some pushback on this comment saying he wasn't utilized correctly. I mean, he was dropping a lot of balls, fumbling. I mean, it came to a point where it's like it was stagnant. There was no progression. The only time I think we really saw some progression was this past season when he had that stretch in the 2 or 3 games before the trade deadline when he was just destroying it. I don't know. I like him. I think he was a good player. I just felt like you can only do so much with the situations, things that are given to you, and you have to act on them. Things, I mean, pretty sure any of them take into account not showing up to workouts, so it probably wasn't. Not going to off-season workouts, not going to pack camp. I mean, no, that's not a requirement, but it kind of is if you want to be successful, in my opinion. So maybe there's some issue there, but it just seemed like sometimes he didn't seem as dedicated. And I know fans would get on him and say, we'll get off bowling and da-da-da. Everyone should have fun. But it just seemed at some points it was like, well, is he dedicated? What's going on? He didn't go to this, he didn't go to that. But at the end of the day, I hope everything goes well for him.
Hey, and you know what? What you said makes a lot of sense because if you look at the players, we had a couple of great players on our team. Armani Watts, Mecole Hardman, 2 great players. I mean, I'm just using those 2 guys as an example. As soon as the last game of the season was over, and sometimes during the season, what did you see pop up on their Twitter page?
Play Warzone.
Let's play Warzone. Who's on Twitch?
We're going to pull the Kyler Murray out on him.
Yeah. So if Andy, you know how he gets, greatest guy in the world, but he has his little rules. I can't say little rules. He has his. I guess I would say he has his regiment, and it was part of Juju's deal that he wasn't supposed to be on TikTok during the regular season. He wasn't to do TikTok videos, and he didn't during the regular season. He didn't do any. He did them. I mean, he made the most of it prior to the season starting because he knew that was the deal. He wasn't supposed to do it during the regular season. But Andy could have went to both of those guys and said, "Hey, instead of playing video games and being on Twitch, maybe you should be studying the playbook and out running routes and practicing, doing off-season workouts." And it seemed like neither one of those guys wanted to do that.
Well, I can't speak maybe for Armani Watt's standpoint. I still feel like to this day he was not given an opportunity. Compared to
I
McCall.
agree there too.
But I think also with McCall, I mean, he's a young guy. He's 24, 25. He's still learning things. I think he'll come around and it's all going to work out in the end eventually. I just felt at some points it was like, come on, man. We know you can do so much better, but we're just stuck with the same stagnant base going across.
It just never look, people are complaining on Twitter. We've seen it all day long about McCall being traded, or not being traded, but signing somewhere else. We knew that was coming. We had been talking about that for a while, that he probably wasn't coming back. There was a slight chance he was going to, but it just, look, man, I mean, it kind of is what it is. What are you going to do? You can't change what Veach does. You can't change what he wants to do. And I will tell you now 100%, and if anybody wants to challenge me, please do. Mahomes is on board with whatever is done because he's asked prior to it happening. That I know for 100% fact. Is he going to get frustrated at some point if he doesn't get a wide receiver that's going to stick around longer than 2 or 3 years? Probably. Or past his rookie contract, especially if he's a great wide receiver, he may. But when they make a decision, he's the first person they ask. They're not the Ravens. They don't let you find out on Twitter that they just cut somebody or didn't re-sign someone. Just not them. So I think people need to realize that it just is what it is, and Veach is going to do what he does. I mean, there's also some talk right now that we may see Frank Clark back in the house. So for all you Chiefs fans out there that decided to trash him over a tweet he put out about something totally different and had nothing to do with the Chiefs, you might want to go and delete those and retract it. I'm sure he's got screenshots, but you done pissed the man off, and he was most likely going to come back. So I'm hoping he still does. But there's talk that he may come back. If he does, hey, I'm all for it. I don't have a problem with that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm all for it.
Yeah, I would. I think it'd be fine, even if you don't re-sign Dunlap, but you bring back Clark instead. I think that's fine. I think they need more depth at the defensive line position. I've got no problem with him coming back. Mm-hmm. He's shown to be good on this defense. I still think that the Chiefs need to go out and invest in some youth there with the draft, but I don't think that the longer it takes, the more time that goes on and he doesn't sign a contract, I think the better the odds he comes back to Kansas City.
No, I agree. I think that may be, look, there's so many deals that are made with players that aren't signed after their contract ends, that they don't pursue another team, a handshake type of deal. Hey, we're going to re-sign you. We just have to wait for this, wait for that. It's happened with us numerous times. Charkandrick West did it. So it's not like it's unheard of that Frank may be just waiting to be re-signed by us. Who knows? But
and I agree with Quinn. The longer it takes, the higher chance it comes back. I don't know. The thing is this: the Chiefs will have to come to a deal that will work out with him, but will also help the team. So maybe we throw some incentive-based deal, stuff you could possibly reach. But I kind of feel like they're probably going to bring him back, but they're going to try bringing who's the next Frank Clark can bring in that can help. That's how I feel personally. Because yes, you can bring him back for the veteran presence, but you need someone else to take that mantle. because I don't see him if he comes back. Not he's only going to be here for maybe another year, 2 tops.
I agree too. I mean, he had contemplated retiring this year, after the game was over. So if he's going to come back, he's going to come back on a 1-year deal. Get his playoff sack record, and then move on. Maybe get another ring. Most likely get another ring. So if that's what he wants to do, hey, I'm all for it. There's nothing. I would rather have him back. And as far as Carlos Dunlap is concerned, if he wants to come back at 35 years old and play the same way he did this past season, I'm not going to complain about that either. Because I think in 17 games, he had at least one batted pass in every game. So I'm okay with that. He was in the backfield a lot when he was on the field.
Yeah, he's a productive rotational piece, and you need to make sure you keep, maybe not Carlos Dunlap specifically around, but you need that in today's day and age. You need guys, you need fresh legs, you need about 6, 7, 8 guys that can get to the quarterback or are able to bust holes open in the offensive line, and that's what helped the Eagles to their success. The 49ers, I mean, and to the same, not to the same extent, but even to Kansas City, right? You were able to get pressure on the quarterback when you needed it. And what's crazy is right now, the oldest player on the defense is Chris Jones at 28.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's how young this defense is. And so, bringing back one of those guys, I don't, that quote unquote veteran presence, even though I think it's a cliche that gets overused, I do think that has some value, especially what Frank Clark did this last season. Just ask George Karlaftis what he did for him. So.
Yep. Very helpful.
Absolutely.
Mentor and did a lot in order to help progress his playing style.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the draft a little bit. We're going to bring up, I want somebody to bring me up 3 quarterbacks, top, first round quarterbacks. We'll bring them up. Then we're going to go to a commercial break, and then we're going to talk about them.
You want just 3 within in the first round?
3 first round, the people that everybody's talking about. Let's hear it, and then we'll go to commercial break, and then talk about them.
The ones I can say off the top of my head is going to be
Stroud.
Yep,
CJ Stroud, who I believe is going to the Panthers, which is not a hot take because that's what everybody thinks. That's where everybody thinks he's going. It matches with the past of what the Panthers have done, their head coach has done, and then you've got Bryce Young, who's projected to go to the Texans. He's the shorter guy, and then that guy from Florida.
Anthony Richardson.
That's the guy that I think is pretty interesting just because of his ceiling and what he's able to bring. Those are the 3 that I've paid most attention to.
Okay, so we brought up 3. We're gonna after this commercial break, we're gonna go over where we think they're gonna fall in the draft and who we think they're gonna go to, and we'll have a little round table discussion about that. We'll be right back.
Underdog Fantasy is here to save your post-fantasy football season blues. The easiest place to play and win with the Underdog Fantasy app. Get up to 20 times your money in a single night with our Pick'em contests. Grab some insurance when setting your picks and win even when one pick fails. Go online now and use the promo code ChiefsFocus to double your deposit up to $100. Sit gingerbread, good girl.
Okay, we are back. So you brought up CJ Stroud. You brought up who else?
CJ Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, and then there's that guy from Kentucky that people really like too.
Will Levis.
Will Levis. Okay, so let's do a little roundabout. Let's start with Quentin. Give me your take on what team is going to take who in the first. Well, we know who's got the first pick. Who do you think they're going to grab? What out of the quarterbacks? Who do you think they're going to grab?
I think they're going with CJ Stroud, which I know is not a hot take, but I think that if you look at the history of their head coach, he's worked with, even before he was at the Colts, he's always worked with bigger quarterbacks, taller quarterbacks, which is why I don't think they're going to go with a Bryce Young. CJ Stroud is more of a generic pocket passer that I think works well with a Matt Ryan type quarterback. And, there's sort of that comparison there where he is just that generic pocket passer. He has mobility. I think in today's NFL, you have to have some mobility, right? We will never see the, just straight pocket passers anymore. The Drew Brees era of the NFL is over. You have to have some mobility with how athletic these defensive linemen are. So when I say pocket passer, I don't mean that he has zero mobility. I would say, Patrick Mahomes is more of a pocket passer, but he can extend plays and run. But there are just a lot of things that connect CJ Stroud to the Panthers. I just don't see them going after Bryce Young. That seems to be the conversation, is who's going to go 1-2. I just don't see Bryce Young going there.
Okay. Caleb?
I believe kind of the second quarterback, I think Bryce Young will be picked. I think my guess is going to be the Texans. That's how I feel personally. That could change. They need a quarterback to kind of change things around. They have brought in some pieces, some acquisitions. They got a new coach, a new coaching staff. Stuff for a lot of guys from 49ers to come over. I think the Texans could be on more up and up, while the Titans are going to drop down. And I believe with an addition of a guy like Bryce Young and seeing what he can do in the NFL setting, I think he's going to help benefit them a lot.
Okay. I agree with both of you guys. I didn't think I was going to. CJ Stroud, I absolutely agree, because he is, I think what you were trying to get at, he's more of a traditional quarterback. He's a pocket passer. He's a shotgun passer. He's got quick release. He does move around if he needs to. But I got to tell you, his accuracy is on point. His decision-making is great. And he's almost a product of what you would see out of that coaching staff because of who they've coached in the past. I don't know about number 2. Number 2's tough. I mean, number 2, it could go a couple of different directions. It really depends on who you feel like is going to fit within your system and how many picks you have and where you want to move if you have other needs. If you have a quarterback that will, like that kid from, what's his name? The kid from
Will Levis.
Will Levis.
He's
a great
whole
example.
take on him. Later.
Huh?
I have a whole thing to say about Will Levis later. But what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to say he could be a fit in a system that maybe somebody else may not. That could be a higher, considered a higher draft pick, or a better draft pick, I should say. And if they have other needs, why not? Why not take that chance? Who knows? Who knows who's going to go to? I do believe CJ Stroud is the quarterback that will go number 1 overall, and he's probably the best pick for them. I do agree with that. So what's your take?
Will Levis, every time there's always one quarterback that seems to get all love and all the praise, and this comes out of nowhere, and they were doing this last year. I think he's a good quarterback, but I feel like he could be the next Mitchell Trubisky or kind of Daniel Jones, 2 ends of the spectrum, where we had one guy who's kind of exceeded expectations has done well, or we have one guy who has dropped and hasn't done well. It just seems after all the time, whenever there is a draft, there is that one quarterback from one of these schools, and they're like, yeah, he can do all this. And all of a sudden they get all this buzz, and they get him to the first round of the draft, and they completely flop. Not saying they were not good from a player standpoint, but NFL readiness, they're just not there. And I feel like there's always one, because of that's hurt a lot of teams and a lot of franchises overall. And I feel like he could be one of these guys moving forward where we're going to see the same pattern happen again.
And see, I feel that way about Bryce Young.
Damn it.
I feel like
That's what I was going to say. Man.
I disagree.
Sorry, man.
I disagree.
Sorry.
I disagree.
Look, I'm sorry, but I think he's going to flop. What do you think, Quentin?
Well, look, I'm not saying this because I'm 6'4", okay? So I ain't got no beef with anybody that's shorter than me.
He likes to brag about his height.
But that's because I don't have much to brag about. But
well, you do have that beard of knowledge.
I do have a problem with height. I think that it is a problem. There are a couple of things. One, I just want to talk about his weigh-in, right? When he weighed in at the combine, he weighed in over 200 pounds. I don't believe that. I believe that he stepped on the scale and it weighed 200, and I think 204 is what he weighed in at. But I don't believe that that's his play at weight. And I have an example of this. So when my brother was in the Marines, he's a skinnier dude, right? He's just always been a skinnier person, very lean, okay? During boot camp, he weighed less than what the Marine Corps wanted him to do. So he was being fed double rations in order to get him to, meet his weight number that they wanted him at. And even in the Marines, he had to do weigh-ins to hit a minimum amount of weight. So what he would do is he would literally drink a gallon of water before going and do his weigh-ins so he could meet that minimum weight requirement so they wouldn't put him on a fancy diet. I think that's what Bryce Young did. I think before they did the weigh-in, what he did is he drank a ton of water and he just got himself ready, a week in advance to try and put on as much, water weight or whatever he was consuming as possible just so he could break that 200 mark. So scouts didn't put that against him. I don't believe he's going to play at 204 pounds. I bet if you weigh him week 4 of the NFL season, he'll probably wear out $180. Like,
You're probably right.
I don't think he weighs 204 pounds. And if we're worried about Tua and how he gets ragdolled and how he falls over and how he hits his head, how am I supposed to feel about a guy that's 5'10 and $180 at best going up against some of these defensive pass rushers? And then we can talk about how he's able to throw the ball down the field. Look, there is some legitimate evidence that shorter quarterbacks struggle to throw the ball over the middle. If you look at Russell Wilson's heat map, and what a heat map is that it shows you where quarterbacks have a tendency to throw the ball. The redder the color is, the more they throw the ball there, and the more blue it is, the cooler it is, the less they throw the ball there. Russell Wilson, from his entire career, struggles to throw the ball over the middle of the field. Kyler Murray, over his short career, struggles to throw the ball over the middle of the field. Okay?
That was a zinger.
This is what shorter quarterbacks do. And why would I use the number 2 overall pick or the number 1 pick to draft a guy who has a significant,
disadvantage?
Who already has a built-in disadvantage? Why would I do that? So that's why I do think he goes 2. I wouldn't draft him 2 because I just don't feel like it's worth, to me, it's worth it to go after a guy that has more eye, like Anthony Richardson, who I think has, some real good talent. And if you believe in yourself and you believe in your quarterback room, getting a guy like that who is seen as more of a riskier talent has better payoff than trying to get a guy that you already know has a built-in disadvantage.
And the fact that he's probably got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder and a little bit more hungry because he is, he's not 1 or 2 in a lot of mock draft minds. So I think that is a big advantage in Richardson's court. I agree with you. I mean, we can go back to Doug Flutie. He was the same way. Doug Flutie, if anybody ever watched him play, the man would literally throw the ball like he was trying to hit an airplane and he really didn't know where he was throwing it. He just had, I guess he had these wide receivers almost trained to be in the right place at the right time all the time because honestly, he couldn't see over anybody. And they purposely stood straight up on him. It wasn't like they were, not standing up on the man. They stood up to make sure he had no clue where he was throwing the ball. And that is a problem.
I mean, we talk about how Drew Brees was a shorter quarterback. Drew Brees was exactly 6 feet tall. So, people had problems with Drew Brees being that tall. And then we have, Bryce Young is 2 inches shorter than that. And yeah. I hear people who talk about how, Kyler Murray, he can throw the ball over the middle of the field and he has success, which is true. Kyler Murray has had success in this. It's not a ton. It's a short, it's a short time frame. But the thing I would say about that is Kyler Murray's more athletic than Bryce Young. Like straight up.
That's fair. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Kyler Murray has the ability where he can run out of and he's a significant run threat. That same athleticism does not apply to Bryce Young. So I think Kyler Murray wasn't just drafted 1-1 to the Cardinals because of his ability to throw the ball or because he was able to stand in the pocket and pick apart defenses. Part of the appeal with a guy like Kyler Murray was his ability to run the ball.
Exactly.
And Bryce Young does not have that same upside. So I don't think Bryce Young is as, this perfect prospect that everybody makes him out to be.
I don't either.
But I think he does go 2 to the Texans. I don't think he should. Like I said, I'd much rather go after like a Richardson.
Yeah, I agree.
My whole take on this is, we see a lot of issues with smaller quarterbacks. Have you guys heard about like the tallest quarterbacks ever in the NFL? Have you guys gone down that rabbit hole before? No?
I mean, to some degree, go ahead and explain.
Like the tallest quarterbacks, like those guys not Brock Osweiler, guys like
Ben Roethlisberger and
Paxton Lynch, guys who are like the tallest. They do not pan out as well. So it's kind of like that even bunch you see, those 6'3", 6'4" guys, not those 6'7s. The guys kind of in the middle are kind of you see the perfect. Now, granted, I think there was a list like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that are very, very tall who didn't do well. 2 of them were drafted to the Broncos organization. So there's our deadly Broncos shade for the day there. But it just kind of shows you how interesting the whole draft class as a whole when it comes to quarterbacks, all this evaluation, all the talent. Did you guys see, though, whenever Bryce Young was having to measure, do you see his shoes were like extra thick at the bottom?
Yeah.
Did you guys notice that?
Yeah.
I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was almost like he was wearing 2 Chainz moon boots, man. I mean, it was.
Well, about those moon boots when we were a kid, you jump on them and jump around.
With how the combine is, I'm surprised they don't make him take their shoes off for that.
I know. And they were like, this is extra, like, couple inches right there. Like, they're like this thick. And I was like, so.
Hey. You know, we talked about this when JJ was on the show. I think you were on this one, Caleb. Back in the day, JJ Burden Marty did this purposely. JJ weighed 157 pounds. He was 5'7" and a quarter, 157-pound wide receiver. When he went in and weighed in, he was 180 pounds. There was a little bit of weight added to the scale.
That's like
not for the JJ.
Pounds added.
Yeah. But JJ, no matter what, Marty wanted to make sure that everybody, and it wasn't because of him needing to make weight for anything. It was because they didn't want people to believe he was smaller than he was to target him.
Yeah, to come and just lay him.
Correct.
To lay the wood.
Yeah. So it happens a lot. I mean, that's not unheard of. I do, let's see, Thomas Miner. What's up, Thomas? He says CJ is the overall the best overall talent. The guy from Tennessee is the bigger project, but may have the biggest upside. I actually agree with you. I do agree with that. I don't know about you guys, but I absolutely agree with him. What else we got? Thomas got LOL. What are you laughing about, Thomas?
Probably our Broncos lender we gave.
Just
could have been the Broncos zinger.
Shitting on the Broncos.
Nothing like shitting on the Broncos.
Yeah, that one.
Super Friends Sports Network is on here. I have to say, a little worried about America's team, the Miami Dolphins. America's team. What are you worried about? I mean, they got everybody except the quarterback. I mean, in my opinion, because the quarterback...
isn't there another AFC team we've been saying that about for the past, I don't know, decade?
True. Yeah,
I guess not. What, 8 years? I guess
8 years. 8 years. I think Miami. And this is going to go against Commissioner Cooper's beliefs. I think Miami will struggle because of Tua, and I say that because I feel like he is in worse physical condition than people are actually giving him credit for. We're going to jump onto a really quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Jazz, Sportsbook, Casino, and Racebook, the world's best resource for all-purpose online wagering. For over 20 years, Jazz has provided the best and quickest payouts in sports and entertainment wagers. Live sports betting, covering all the major sports leagues, and even into the new and exciting world of esports. Down the stretch you'll come, with Jazz's online horse wagering. Get paid when you play with Jazz's fun and exciting online casino games. Go online now and use the promo code TSS for our new members deals. Jazz Sportsbook, Casino, and Racebook, the world's best resource for online wagering.
Okay, guys, we're back. I'm waiting for an answer. Let me see if he gave us an answer. He said lies. I'm guessing that's about Tua. Look, man, I'm sorry, but I think Tua has more issues than people are giving, than people are alluding to. And I think he's going to, you can save the show, bookmark it, take a picture, whatever you want to do. I feel like by week 5, he's going to be injured.
You want to hear my Dolphins hot take?
Go
Let me
ahead.
hear your
I'll
Dolphins hot take.
Lamar Jackson plays for the Dolphins next year.
And you might be right.
My
You absolutely might be right.
The reason that they haven't done anything yet is because they have to have the 2 first-round picks in order to negotiate with him.
What do you think about that, super friends?
And they can't talk to him because they don't have a 2023 first-round draft pick. So if they wait till after the draft, where they have a 2024 and a 2025 pick, and those would be the 2 next drafts, then they can be allowed to negotiate with Lamar Jackson. So
he said, "See you in the AFC Championship game."
They gotta get past the divisional round. I mean,
they gotta get past that
round,
divisional round first, and a wild card round, and then they also have to get past. Man, look, you guys are gonna have a tough division this year. I'm sorry, but you are. This is not a cakewalk. I think it's going to be a little easier for. I think it would be a little easier. Maybe for Miami, given the fact that I think Buffalo is going to regress, but I think the Jets with Aaron Rodgers is going to definitely move up, and I think the Patriots are going to move up. Even with Smack Jones, I think they're going to move up.
I don't think so. I don't think the Patriots are going to be. I don't know if their record necessarily reflects that. I think they could still be, around 500. I don't know that. I haven't looked at their schedule. I just don't think that the Patriots are that good, and I think that the defense is worth them some time, but I just don't know how good Mac Jones and that offense is going to be. I have a feeling it'll be better because they actually have an offensive coordinator now, which is a good move. I know we talk a lot of trash about old Billy Bryan, but that's mostly because of him as a GM and not him as a coach, specifically an offensive coach. He's a good offensive coach, but the old double chin is actually a good offensive coordinator.
And going back to the Dolphins, if they don't get Lamar, I think they're going to do similar to what the Packers did, and they're going to draft a quarterback and have him in the waiting. Like, no, this is just in case.
Yeah.
But this just kind of shows you're kind of already out the door. That's how I feel.
Agree.
I mean, it sucks, but unfortunately, we're at the point is the NFL's in a win now mode. Well, specifically the Dolphins are in a win now mode. And if they can get a quarterback they think that could fall to them, or maybe possibly trade up or whatever, they'll take that chance. I feel like
one thing you got to think about. We talked about this.
Much.
You can. You're right. And we could talk about this really quick. We talked about it on our show last night about the Jets kind of handcuffing themselves with the Aaron Rodgers situation simply because there's really no quarterbacks left. Well, now there is, because Lamar Jackson is free to talk to other teams. What came out today about him was pretty interesting. The NFL rules have stated this for a while, that if you're not sanctioned or approved by the NFLPA to speak on your behalf, then whoever you have speaking on your behalf means absolutely nothing. That is one of the reasons why Lamar has not talked to another team yet, even though he wants to leave. So he's going to have to find somebody that will speak on his behalf, aka you need an agent, stupid. But that's just part of his mindset. If you don't have an agent and you're going to have Jamal Jones or whatever his name was, that's not sanctioned by the NFLPA, talk on your behalf, you're not getting anywhere. So, look, man, we're barely through the offseason. We don't know what the Patriots are going to do. We don't know what is going to happen with Lamar Jackson. He may have to sign somebody. Just his mom not sanctioned. So we're going to have to find somebody he's going to have to find somebody that is going to be able to speak on his behalf unless he wants to do it on his own. That has not worked out well for him yet. So I think it's time for him to bite the bullet and just find someone that could speak on his behalf, because he's not doing a good enough job of it and he has nobody else.
I mean,
what's that saying? Like being a penny wise, dollar short. What's that? Something like that, where you're thinking short term about how you're spending your money, but you're really losing money in the long term. I think that's what he's doing without having an agent. But we talked about that. I just think that that the report you're talking about that came out earlier today is talking about that he's done with Baltimore. I think that what else is supposed to come out. So I just think that I don't know how seriously I take some of those reports because we're in the smoke and mirrors time. We're in the leverage, people trying to teams, players, agents are trying to get leverage to get their best deal. I have the exact opposite opinion on what you guys think in terms of the Jets. I think the Jets have more leverage than the Packers do in terms of getting Aaron Rodgers because the Packers have put themselves in a position to where they're kind of screwed and that the Jets can just wait out this trade and they can get, if they trade for him after the draft and, then they don't have to trade away the 13th overall pick. And what are the Packers going to say? No, now that the 2023 draft is done, we're not going to trade him. No, they're still going to trade him. So I think the waiting game is with the Jets here, not necessarily the Packers, but we'll just see how some of this stuff turns out. I feel like we're sort of in that starting to get into that dead period. That first waves, quote unquote, of free agency is over. So now we're going to start to see some dead time and not a lot's going to happen. And then about a week before the draft goes up, everything's gonna kick back up.
And you could be right. I don't know. I feel like the Packers are very vindictive. So especially look, man, they signed him to a giant contract to give him nobody to play with so he would fail. I understand he's kind of a eccentric person. I'll leave it at that. And he's not easy to deal with. That's very obvious. But again, they pissed away an awful lot of money to watch him fail. They gave him an IR specialist and a bunch of guys that, honestly, have never played the game to that level. You don't give somebody like that no one. They gave him no defense, they gave him no offensive line, and they gave him no weapons. So that was vindictive. It was a vindictive move. I don't feel like for 1 second that they wouldn't do it again and say, okay, well, you know what? There's nothing in your contract that says you can't be a backup. So if we're not going to get what we want out of you, sit your ass on the bench because we're starting Jordan Love.
But he's going to make more problems. He's going to make more problems. That's the thing.
Absolutely he would.
They might as well hey, we'll just get rid of you. Let's get some compensation. We think it's going to work for us. We'll move on. Having Aaron Rodgers as a backup and he's not going to be a team player, it's just going to make things worse for Jordan Love, and everyone's just going to turn on Rodgers even more so because we've already seen the last couple of years about it's more about I instead about team or we.
Yeah.
And that's basically what it's come down to. And that's just one of the things. It's like, well, I understand Rodgers has his own way of doing things, but comes a point sometimes you have to sacrifice some of that pride. And if some things could have been worked out with better, but also to his credit too, he has brought some raising concerns. No help he had for a while, and that's what you need. He can't do it all. Oh, we didn't sign extra defensive lineman. Rodgers will help us win the game. Oh, we don't have the best wide receiver. Rodgers will help us. One guy on a football team, 11-man, can only do so much.
And you can't expect, you're right. You can't expect a 37-year-old guy to scramble constantly and run for his life. And that's basically what he did last year. He ran for his life. He got hit a ton of pressures, a lot of sacks. It was just a vindictive move. And who knows what they'll do, man. It seems like those guys just don't care. So if that's the kind of crap they want to pull, and you're right, he would definitely cause problems. And he's come out,
he would probably be on McAfee just saying a bunch of during the practice and saying this. And like, dude.
I guarantee he'd be on FaceTime like this, just sitting there. You know what, I guarantee it.
He's standing there like, hey, you want to see these kinds of routes that Jordan Love can't go? Look at this 5-yard out route he can't go.
Look at this. Are you guys watching this practice? Because this is how they play the game for anybody else that's got to play us this year. Because that's exactly what he would do. I don't know. But Thomas says the Packers have had 2 Hall of Fame QBs and didn't know when to move on from them. Bad front office. It's absolutely a bad front office. It has been for a long time. It's the GM and president there are terrible. I'm sorry, but they are. CEO, president, whatever you want to call him. They're just not a good organization or ran organization right now and haven't been for the last really probably 8 years. They've been in a pretty bad situation. Before Rodgers really started making demands, they had it a little easier because, again, if you look at the coaches that they had, they were yes men coaches as well. They were the Cowboys style coaches. And wait a minute, I think a couple of those ended up being Cowboys coaches at one time or another, at least one. So I don't know, man. It's going to be a strange situation, whatever happens with him. He said he definitely doesn't want to retire, and he definitely wants to play for the Jets, which is a complete 360 from what he said prior to people inside his camp, outside of his camp, people that I've talked to. He did not want to follow. He did not want to go down the Brett Favre rabbit hole.
Well, he has been Brett Favre 2.0.
Well,
Except a better player, but yeah. Absolutely.
As long as he allegedly doesn't steal money from Mississippi welfare recipients, he'll be fine. Allegedly.
Make sure you leave allegedly in there because apparently he's suing everyone over that.
Yeah.
Allegedly. He's just thrown, allegedly.
Yeah.
So.
He's a public figure. I have the right to talk about it.
Yeah.
I didn't take
well,
that
now
law
he's
class
suing
for nothing.
everybody. So, I mean, he's suing Pat McAfee, I think. He's suing
Shannon Sharp.
He's
probably
going
went
after
others.
everybody. So, you can sue Pat McAfee if you want. The guy's making $1 million a month. Sue him. You're not going to win, but go ahead and sue. I mean, McAfee's got 10 guys on retainer.
No problem.
So he can do whatever he wants. But I feel like that's going to be a weird situation. It's going to be a lot of drama again this year with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers. If they just don't outright figure out a way of, saying, look here, Jets, take him for a 3 this year or a 2 this year and a 3 next year, and let's just move on. It's going to be a problem. And they're going to have to eat some of that contract.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I think the start, is it the start of preseason? I think Aaron Rodgers' contract becomes unmovable. So, they have to move him before, the season kicks off. I think the Packers, and this is we're running out of time here, but I think maybe this is a conversation we have in like June. But I think the Packers have, they have the two best 20 quarterbacks in NFL history, and they have 2 Super Bowls between them.
That's the thing you got to think about. Exactly.
So I think the Packers over the last 30 years have significantly underperformed, but I think that's a conversation for another day.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to do one more commercial. We got about an extra 10 minutes because, hey, we're the last show of the night. So it's always nice to be the last show of the night because you can run on a little bit longer if you want to. We got a couple of things we can go over, and then we can be done with this. We'll be right back. Okay, guys, we are back.
Let's finish our conversation with what Thomas Miner has. He asked the question, who are your dark horses in the NFL? So, JP, why don't you start, and we'll answer this question. I like this question. It's a good question.
Dark horses meaning
teams that, like I would say Jacksonville was a dark horse heading into last year. A team
I see what they're saying. So, team-wise.
Yeah.
I didn't know if you meant player or team. That's kind of a tough one. I feel like Jacksonville is probably going to be, again, one of those teams that they're going to be very tough for the Chiefs to beat. They're going to be a tough team in the AFC. I don't want to really use them again because it's pretty obvious that they're going to be a tough team. If I had to go with someone, probably an unpopular opinion in the NFL, I am going to go AFC because, well, no, you know what? I think I'm going to go NFC. And I think my dark horse is the Rams.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like Sean McVay has something up his sleeve. He's going to make some moves. He's going to bring in the right caliber players. He's going to cater. If they end up sticking with Stafford, they're going to bring in the right group of players and surround him with a team that can win. This is about what they do. About every, they go, they get there, they put all their eggs in one basket. They either make it to the Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, they don't go to the playoffs the following year. Then the year after that, they make the playoffs or they make the Super Bowl. This has been kind of like the mantra of Sean McVay, especially if he's going to go out after this year and decide to retire. I feel like he's going to go for it all. That's my dark horse.
I've got
You
one.
guys-
I got to go before you because if you take mine, I'm going to be pissed.
If you take mine, I'm not gonna be happy. I'll drop the
Okay,
Maryville.
my
Whoa,
dark horse,
ding, ding, ding.
my dark
Go
horse
ahead.
is the Pittsburgh Steelers. Mine is the Steelers because I think that if you look at what they did last year with sort of question marks at the quarterback position, right? We didn't know what Kenny Pickett was going to be. And, we'd always talked about how, the Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin is an amazing coach. The guy's never had a losing season. And even all of the crap that happened last year and how competitive that division is and how some of those games turned out still does not have a season with a losing record. So I think that with the dysfunction that's happening in Baltimore, with the dysfunction of the Cleveland Browns, I don't think Deshaun Watson ever gets back anywhere close to where he was. I think that Pittsburgh has an easier schedule this year because they didn't, finish in the top of that division. I think Pittsburgh could be one of those teams because of that extra wild card spot they had a few years ago. I think the Pittsburgh Steelers could sneak into the playoffs. I really do, especially if they add some more talent on the offense and they add some more offensive weapons. They draft a wide receiver kind of high, like a Quentin Johnston or, any of those top end wide receivers. And how Pittsburgh good is at drafting wide receivers. They always seem to find guys. So I think Pittsburgh, man, I really do think that they can be that dark horse, a guy that nobody's thinking about because they had a down year and they don't have anybody flashy on that team, but they're just a good football team. Did I take yours,
All right.
Caleb?
No, you did not.
Okay,
My
good.
pick is some you may not agree with, and the reason why is they have a whole new coaching staff and a whole new formula is the Texans. The reason why, before you guys all yell and scream and JP throws something, what we see with the Texans last year, even though they struggled
The fuck is
a
this?
lot,
The fuck is this?
shaking my head on you. When we look at the Texans, every game they lost to, it was very close in margin. I mean, it really wasn't like a blowout. They beat the Titans a couple times. I mean, they played pretty well. Now, I think that with everything works out, they brought in some good players, and I think they can figure some things out. They have a better coaching staff. They may be able to sneak into that last playoff spot or maybe on the edge looking in. They might spoil a couple teams' season. I believe if they can kind of bring it all together, what Lovie Smith did with that team was phenomenal. Now we see DeMarco Arias is coming in. I think he's going to take them to that next step. And they may not win the division, which probably won't happen, but I think they'll be on the cusp of making the playoffs. If not this year, they'll most likely make it next year.
Did you say the Texans?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. I'm sorry. I actually heard Titans, and that's why when
No, not the Titans are going on.
I'm sorry, I heard Titans, and that's why I said, "What the fuck?" Because I had no clue who you were actually speaking of. I don't know why I heard Titans. It could be, I don't know, man. It could be just being tired. I don't know. Let's see who he has. Thomas has the Detroit.
That's
in
a
the
pretty
NFC.
good pick.
Pretty damn good pick.
I don't know
what?
if you can call him a dark horse, but I do agree that, I think that's a team on the rise. I think they're a sneaky pick to snag a quarterback later, and some of those guys, the ones that are called more project-based in the second round, I think those are some of the guys that could actually end up going to Detroit, so that way they don't have to depend on Jared Goff forever. So, but Detroit's going to be a pretty good team. I do think that as well, especially with the NFC North. If Aaron Rodgers gets traded out of Green Bay, you could make a real argument that division is more open than it has been in damn near 30 years. So, I think that's a good point. Plus, we talked about this too. The NFC is also just in general wide open because there's not a lot of dominant quarterback play. So it's going to come down to just your overall team. And if you look at Detroit, it's weird to say, but the Lions have a lot of really good pieces.
My only rebuttal to that is when was the last time Detroit actually made any kind of a splash at all in the NFL?
I would counter
It's
that
been a
with saying,
while.
when's the last time Detroit's been stable? When have they kept a head
That's a
coach
good
there for
point.
more than 3 years?
Okay, but
Good
even
point.
when they had Barry Sanders and they had the same head coach, they couldn't make the playoffs. They didn't even sniff a Super Bowl win. If they make it to, I believe they'll make it to the wild card. I do believe that. If they make it to the divisional round, that's a dark horse in my opinion. Because, man, you can't get any darker than them. I mean, well, I guess you could be Cincinnati, but
I mean, I was going to say Cleveland.
or Cleveland.
I'd much rather be a Lions fan than a Browns fan right now.
Well, I would too. But in the same aspect, you're talking about three teams that all three of them together, you could still throw a big fat zero up on as far as who has a Super Bowl ring. I mean, none of them. So at least, I guess, when you really look at it, Cincinnati's gotten to the Super Bowl, which was by really strength of schedule and some luck. And then the Browns, they just keep browning. I mean, it's just, I don't know, man.
We got to come up with a new word to describe how dysfunctional Cleveland is.
I don't want to down the people in Cleveland. I don't want to slam.
Yeah, your river catches on fire.
That's the case. I mean, we keep talking too much.
Historical joke for those
Hey,
people.
by the way, and you're not wrong, we keep fucking around, and the next thing you know, another train's going to derail. I mean, they have got some horrible shit that goes on in that state. No matter how you look at it, it's a bad state all the way around because things just aren't taken care of. It's kind of like Jackson. If you think about them, they've been drinking poisoned water for how many years? And it's going to take them another 15 years just to get the water fixed. You keep talking about a horrible city or a horrible state, it's just going to keep getting worse. I don't think they can get better.
I think it'll come around. I mean, if not, I'll just say is Cleveland fans, they've gone through some struggles. They got to see a playoff win, so that was good. I say they're probably going to get another quarterback, unfortunately. Or they're not a quarterback. They're probably going to get another head coach. I feel like if this year doesn't work out. I just feel like they kind of up. Now, I realize the Browns, there have been some ups and downs, but ultimately they could get a new coach. I don't think that should happen, but I feel like if they have crazy expectations, they don't get them fixed, they're going to be in the same cycle all over again.
Well, you can't cut Deshaun Watson, because of that contract. So if he comes out and has another bad year, maybe they do end up firing some people. Maybe it's not the head coach. Maybe they take the Chargers route and they just get rid of literally everybody else.
Hey, by the way, let's talk about that really quick. So I never really watched the end of the Chargers game, the Chargers Jaguars game. Did you guys watch that game?
I watched that game live, man.
Okay, I did. I watched the game, but I was kind of in and out because I was doing other things. I never really watched the look on some of the coaches' faces, which I normally pay a lot of attention to, especially when they get their ass kicked. Looking at Staley's face at the end of that game, because he is a sneaky little shit. He does a lot of things that are shady. I will give him he's a good clock management guy to some degree, and he knows how to run a clock down, and he'll kneel it, 3 times and then somehow get a first down or do something stupid. I mean, he's done some weird crap just to win a game. And the fact that he doesn't care if his players are injured or not. But the absolute disgust, and I don't even know if it was a letdown, if it was just, I don't know how to explain the look on his face when that ball went through the uprights. But that was a great moment for me. I do not like that man. And I think that was a great moment. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I think if you could describe how the hell did that happen in a facial expression, on top of what did I just watch type deal.
You know,
That sort of sums it up pretty well.
when you look at his face and you're thinking, okay, I'm standing here and I had a 27-point lead, and then the ball goes through the uprights.
What's the emergency?
Oh no, that's the wrong one. Let me give you the right one. This is his
The
mindset.
fuck is that? The fuck is this? I am confused.
Well,
He was-
I was. They didn't do anything. That just showed you everything they had to deal with, and it's just crazy to see they just struggled and struggled and struggled.
You know, that was horrible game management. It was horrible play calling, and the defense absolutely let them down. Now,
And so did their offense too. I mean,
well,
the fact you
but
couldn't
that's
score
on
more
him.
than- you couldn't score more than 3 points in the second half.
We can't say much. We've had that happen to us under the Mahomes era.
I don't care. I'll say it
See what I'm
did.
saying?
No,
But
I'll talk about how poorly the Mahomes offense played in the AFC Championship game against the Bengals.
But the difference was, I'm not talking about the Bengals game. Oh, was it the Bengals game? No. I'm talking about the Super Bowl. The 2020 Super Bowl.
okay. That one's a little different. That's
Exactly.
more of the offensive line. I mean, Justin Herbert wasn't out there playing with Joe from down the street as his left tackle. Okay, that's a different situation.
I agree. But my point is that you had an issue with the Chiefs that really nobody could have overcome, especially going against a top 3 defense in the league. What excuse did they have? I mean, honestly, what excuse did they have? They didn't really have that issue. They had the tangibles. Well, I can't say the tangibles, but they had their starters. So when it all boils down to it, it comes down to a very cocky head coach that thinks he can pretty much do whatever the hell he wants, calling plays that were not conducive to your team, even not even the fact that they didn't score more than 3 points, but even holding a lead for that matter. But he was even, let's take it a step further and say, okay, well, how did this man hang on to his job? Does somebody have pictures of him with goats? We have no clue. But what we do know
Allegedly.
But what we do know is that if he kept his job, he pulled a Josh McDaniels. Well, this guy didn't do his job, and that's his job. And we gave him look, I'm sorry, organization, but you guys gave this guy full play calling rights on the defense. You couldn't allow me to step in because that wasn't in my contract. We don't know that, but that's probably something that he could have pulled. Nobody knows. He shouldn't have his job. I'm sorry, but he should not have a job.
This season will be telling. This season right here.
Oh, this is make or break it for him.
This is the season.
Yeah, this is make it or break it for him.
Yeah, that's a pretty toasty seat that he gets to sit on all season.
Oosh, man, that thing's like steaming hot in the middle of Vegas in July. That's
on an asphalt parking lot.
On an asphalt
at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
Dang, Skippy. I mean, it's just, dude, the guy's butt is going to be on fire, roasting. His wife's going to have to put aloe vera on it every night because I'm telling you, he's going to feel the pain if he has another season or even an inkling of a game like he had in the playoffs. I'm sorry, but that's – and Philip, you're 100% right. He should have been gone. Let's see. Thomas said, I'm glad Peyton is in Denver and not in L.A. Absolutely. I am too. Yeah, I agree with you. I'd still think Denver's going to come in second in the division because of Sean Payton, and we can save that for another, for the end of the season. What do you think, Caleb? What's your prediction for the AFC West this season? If you look at it right now as a whole, nothing else changes.
Chiefs on top. I'm going to say the Broncos are second, Chargers third, and Raiders are last.
Thank you. What do you think, Quentin? I know you're a Bronco hater, and you don't want to ever admit that Sean Payton can actually make a change. But what do you think?
I just don't think Russell Wilson. This has nothing to do with Sean Payton. I think that the head coaching will obviously be better because Sean Payton isn't going to kick a 65-yard field goal in the upper Northwest. To win a game. He's going to put his quarterback out there to try and win it. And I think that he's going to be able to get plays in. So they're going to have to waste timeouts and take the Denver crowd isn't going to have to count down like it's a freaking shot clock in an NBA game. Okay. So
exactly.
I think, those problems are solved. But in terms of Russell Wilson, I think Russell Wilson has lost a step. And that was part of his game in terms of rolling out of the pocket, trying to make stuff happen off schedule. I don't know if he has that part of his game left. And so if you're removing that, you're removing a ton of his production. So I'm just not sure that no matter who you have as his head coach, I'm not sure that you can get a lot of that stuff back. Obviously, I think the team's going to be better because the head coaching can't get much worse. So, I've played Madden and I can, I know when to call timeouts. Okay. I think this is serious moment, kind of joking, but also serious. Every NFL owner, take my advice. Okay. This is free advice. I know how much you love free. Everybody loves free. Before you hire somebody as a first-time head coach, sit them down and play Madden against your nephew or your son, okay, and see how they clock manage. If they can't clock manage, don't hire them, okay? My generation, people a little older than me, people younger than me, we've been playing Madden for over a decade, okay?
Long time.
We've been playing Madden for a while. I know how to call a timeout and run a 2-minute drill. The fact that some of these NFL head coaches seem so incompetent to run a 2-minute drill blows my mind. It just, I don't understand how you don't know how to run a 2-minute drill.
I absolutely agree with you. Now, here's the thing that I will say. If Russell Wilson has, say, the first 3 to 5 games of this next upcoming year looks anything like it did last year, Sean Payton will not hesitate for a second to bench him for Stenham. And I think Stenham would actually go out there and really want to prove himself. And if that happens, I could almost guarantee you they'll come in second because he has the chip. He wants to prove himself. If he comes out and he plays better than Russell Wilson, the Jay-Z of football, I promise you they will come in second.
Yeah,
he's not only changed the head coach, but he's got a new offensive coordinator. He's got a new defensive coordinator. He's done a lot of things to make changes. I just feel like they're going to be a better football team than we're giving them credit for.
Okay, I got to answer your question. I'm not locking it in, but how I'm feeling right now. I still think Chiefs 1. I think the Chargers 2. And then I would probably go Broncos, Raiders. I really wish I could put the Broncos at 4 again so I could, ride that mountain for the rest of the year. But I just think with how dysfunction Vegas has been, it's been so bad. I think that it'll be interesting to see if Denver's defense regresses at all, or if they continue to play at that level because, top offenses can be pretty consistent, but top defenses fluctuate way faster. So, we talk about teams like the Jets, how good they're going to be. Look at that defense. There's no guarantee that defense is going to be as good as that was the year before. So I'm just, is that defense going to continue to be where the way it was, or is there going to be a shift? So those sort of things are really fluid. Defense in the NFL, play style, points given up, those sort of things are more fluid than I think what some people think.
Okay, you know what, Caleb? I don't know if you've noticed, but he has yet to let go of this whole thing that he picked, Denver to be dead last year.
Yeah, hey, he was right. He was right.
But everybody knows. Right. Everybody that listens to our show knows. I mean, you're beating a dead horse now.
No, man, I'm keeping that horse alive.
Well, I'd rather be right 100 out of time.
That horse
with
is
that
pick. It's hanging. I mean, it's on the surgery table, but it's breathing. Okay, and it's only gonna.
It's got one lung left. It's got one lung left. It's on life support. It's on life support.
It is.
I will give it to you. I honestly thought I picked it the other way around. I really did. I actually thought they were going to be second.
See, picking the Broncos to finish last really validates some of my other football takes, because I was ahead of the curve. So if I continue to push that narrative out that I was ahead of the curve there, it gives some of my crazier takes. You're like, well, he was right about this one thing, so maybe, just maybe, this isn't as dumb as it sounds.
Well, we'll see.
I'm going to leave that alone.
Look into that.
Yeah, it's like the Lamar Jackson going to Miami thing. See, you think it's crazy, but you think about it, you're like, I don't
He's
know.
going to the Colts.
I don't know.
but-
He's going to the Colts. Yeah.
I'm going to leave that part of what you just said alone because that was probably one of the easiest takes that you could have thrown out there.
He was
Wouldn't it
right
be
though.
funny? Wouldn't
But
it
he
be
was
funny,
right.
though, if
He was right. I'm not going to take it away from you. You were right.
it'd be so.
Quentin
it
was
would be
right.
Really
Everybody
funny.
save the show. Please save the show. Post it on Twitter and Facebook and put a TikTok video up. Quentin was right.
Right there. It would be really funny if Lamar Jackson went to the Colts because that would just be another way
Oof.
Indianapolis screws over the city of Baltimore.
Yeah.
They left.
Yeah.
They ditched them. They overnighted everybody to the new city, and then years later they're going to take, the best quarterback they've had since Joe Flacco.
Yeah. I would agree with you. One thing that was said, and we'll end the show with this. Somebody, and I want to see your guys' thoughts on this. I don't remember his name right now. An NFL analyst today stated that Lamar Jackson is the most dynamic football player that has come out in the last 10 years. He said that he believes that he's been held back, which I do agree with that part of it. But he's the most dynamic passer of the ball, threads the needle, and can run. And when you have those tangibles, then you are the most dynamic quarterback that's come out of the league in the last 10 years or out of college. What is your thoughts on this?
I'll go first. I think that Lamar Jackson is a better thrower than what people give him credit for. I think that he's improved over the years. He's gotten much better at throwing the ball. And obviously, when Lamar Jackson is healthy, I think that we might have, as a public, just forgotten how good and electric he is running the ball because we haven't seen him in a while. Lamar Jackson is a fun player to watch, and I think that he is, up there with when he's at his best. He is one of the best players in the game that we have.
But he is the
Obviously,
most dynamic.
He is not the most dynamic, and that anybody trying to make that hyperbolic statement, I'm not here for that. What I will say is he is a much better thrower of the football than what a lot of people give him credit for. He can make a lot of those throws, and that he couldn't make early in his career. Right? I think early in his career when he was really depending on his running game for a lot of his production, I think it was fair to say that, man, he needs to work on that passing game because otherwise, he's not going to be in this league very long. And to his credit, he has. It's a lot like Josh Allen, right? Josh Allen early in his career was so inaccurate with the deep ball. He's worked at it, and he's a much better quarterback than he was. So you can progress with your accuracy, and Lamar Jackson has done that. But obviously, we know who the best quarterback is, and it's not even close.
I don't even think he's second or third most dynamic that's come out in the last 10 years. But what do you think, Caleb?
I think he's one of the best. I want to put him the number one, but I think what we've seen him do and progress over time, he has done a lot of things that no one has seen before on this greater scale. I mean, he's basically Michael Vick 2.0 in certain instances. I think with an actual good coaching staff and with a good team around him, that's only going to raise the ceiling. So there are some teams out there I think he could possibly go to. And if he goes to those said teams, like the Dolphins, maybe the Colts, maybe some NFC teams, he'll raise the bar and do a lot better than what he did previously with the Ravens. Like, hit it on another ceiling.
Okay. The only thing that I have to say about this is I absolutely think he's a great quarterback. I don't know that he is able to read defenses as well as other quarterbacks in the league. He has gotten better at passing. We've talked about this, Caleb, for 4 years now?
Wow.
Yeah, that he, he was hitting his own lineman in the back of the head for a while. He was throwing the ball 15 yards to the left or right. Couldn't hit a wide open receiver 20 yards down the field. He has gotten a lot better at passing the ball. But now you're taking away one of his best attributes. And at some point, it's going to have to stop, and that's his running game. Because his running game has gotten him 4 different injuries. Which we knew was coming. We talked about that, Caleb, on this show numerous times, that a DB was going to go after his legs, them little chicken legs he's got. And that's what happened. They went after the chicken legs, and they took him out. He's got knee injuries, calf injuries, and ankle injuries now. And those are the staple of his game. So he's going to have to become a great pocket passer and a pretty good scrambler. I mean, but he can't run the ball and take those hits anymore. That's just it's just progression. It's part of the progression of his game, and it's a regression, I should say. But that's something we're going to have to watch and see how he handles himself moving forward, to see how well he does as more of a traditional quarterback versus a running back that plays quarterback, because that's basically what he was at the beginning up until he started getting injuries. I'll leave it at that. Thomas, real quick, we'll put out you said Denver's defense is nasty and Peyton will get more out of Russ. He won't be Seattle Russ, but he'll be much better than he was last year. I have to agree with that. I think that
can't be
their
much
defense,
worse than he was last year. So,
well, absolutely not. And I think their defense is better. They've although they did lose a couple of great defensive players. I mean, when you trade off Chubb, that was weird. I mean, I'm sorry, but I know they wanted some of their draft picks back after the Russ, let's give everybody up for, the guy that can't boil water anymore. Besides, they say let Russ cook, man can't boil water, or at least he couldn't last year. So we're going to have to see how that plays out, but we'll see how their defense comes up this year. And strength of schedule is going to play a huge part in a lot of these games, AFC games especially, that we've seen over the last couple of years. I think, again, you're going to see Cincinnati regress. I think you're definitely going to see the Ravens regress. The Titans are going to tighten. I don't think the Chargers are going to be anywhere near the AFC champions that they've tried to be the last 10 years or been called out to be. And I think Buffalo's going to regress. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. With that being said, I think we probably ought to end this one because we're a half hour over. But we really appreciate everybody joining. Make sure you like and subscribe. We will be back on tomorrow night. Is that tomorrow night, Caleb?
We'll see, probably. That or Sunday.
Tomorrow night or Sunday. We're going to alternate Thursdays and Sundays during the off season, and then during the regular season will be four shows
probably
a week.
Those games.
Yeah. So with that being said, we appreciate everybody joining, and make sure, again, you like and subscribe. And we will talk to you guys again in a couple of days. Peace out, everybody.